Design Today's guest is a friend and neighbor of mine, Cody Webb. Full-time, he's the Director of Global Customer Experience at Newskin Enterprises. On the side, Cody's an avid outdoorsman. He's got himself a passion project that he calls That Utah Family, or TUFF for short. You can find some of his stuff on Instagram or in the episode notes on my website. With TUFF, he's constantly recording and getting awesome shots that he compiles into great family photos, showcasing some of the Utah experiences families can have. Cody reached out to me not too long ago, knowing that I've been running this podcast for a while, asking how I balance life, work, and content creation, noting if it's even worth all the effort. I invited him on the show because balance is something that I love to discuss, specifically when it comes to pursuing your passion projects on top of what we've already got going on with family, work, and life. Give today's episode a listen. Let me know what insights you gather. Without further ado, Design Today featuring Cody Webb. Okay, we're good. So, Cody, now we're starting. This is the beginning of the podcast.
I'm live.
You are live.
I've never been live before, I don't think. Maybe live on Facebook, but
I've never done any live things on social media. Certainly
not live on Windspear Designs.
No, not on Windspear Designs. But you have done some live stuff. For those who are listening, I want to give you a chance to give some background on yourself.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about your experience with Modere. Talk about where you're at now, what you're doing, and then we'll get into some of the thoughts and questions that you wanted to cover today.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, man. It's great. It's great to be here. And this was actually what I want to talk about, right? This concept of just jumping on and asking questions, having a conversation, and letting others join in on the conversation.
Yep.
My background is in marketing. I just love marketing. I started in high school. I was taking college courses to graduate concurrently. And obviously earlier in your education, you get a nice round exposure to everything. Yeah. Well, I took an introduction to marketing course and I loved it. And I haven't stepped a foot outside of it since. So most recently, I worked at Modere.com. Modere.com's down in Springville.
You were there for a while.
I was there for 5 years.
Yeah.
And I was the director of marketing for North America.
Mm-hmm.
So that's everything from producing events to managing content and social media to our websites and even product marketing.
And you did a lot of travel in that time too. Went to some pretty cool places.
Yeah, well, we did a lot of sales incentives, and luckily I had the opportunity to go on those trips and capture it. Right,
That's
so
cool.
we'd take video, photos, put together a little highlight reel that made it look awesome, so everybody would want to attend.
And in the process, when you're doing those things, were you behind the camera? Were you directing? Were you managing? What was your role?
So initially when I joined Modere, I was the only member of the marketing team, which is awesome. I recommend that to anybody who is looking to grow their career.
Sure.
Like, go stretch yourself, put yourself in a position where you have to do a bunch of stuff. That's where I was. And not just with Modere, several of the other companies I was with, startup kind of feel. So I was wearing a lot of hats. I was behind the camera, both photos and videos and editing, in addition to sending out the email and coding the email. I mean, just a great introduction to marketing in general. But as we grew the company, I was able to hire people, right? Ended up having writers and designers and web.
What was the thing that you were least confident in or least enjoyed in that process?
The person that I was the least confident?
Not the person. No.
Oh, no. The skill.
The skill.
The skill I was least confident in. The skill I was most confident in at the time was email marketing. I had done that for large corporations and basically every position I've ever been in, I've been involved in email marketing. So that's probably a strong suit. The thing I was least confident in is probably photography.
Sure.
Yeah, very, very amateur even today at photography. But luckily, the tools that we have today to capture content,
so much easier.
It makes it you can do things that other people are impressed with, but you actually didn't do a lot. You just threw it into a template or some kind of a program, and it kicks out something magical.
Right.
So just being resourceful was an advantage.
Was photographer then one of your first hires or no?
One of my first hires was another person just like me, right? Somebody who was able to do more than one thing. You know, that's really typically what you need when you're in that early phase. Is you need people who are willing to do things they don't know how to do, even spend time after hours learning it, right? I would spend a lot of time outside of work hours trying to learn these things that work was requiring me to do, or at least there was that sucking sound, right? There was a need, you could see a need, and if you can develop the talent to fulfill that need, all of a sudden you're super valuable to the organization, and they don't want to let you go, you know?
So you were successful in what you're doing. You had,
I don't know.
Yeah, you had some success in what you're doing. Eventually you moved on, and what are you doing now? How have your responsibilities changed?
Yeah, so right now I'm at Nu Skin Enterprises, and we are leading out a new department. There's a new team at Nu Skin called the Customer Experience and Loyalty Team. Nu Skin is setting out to differentiate who they are by their customer experiences. So we strategize all day about customer personas, the customer journey. What can we do to improve them, to acquire customers, and of course, not just acquire them, but to retain them and keep them coming back.
Right. And you're down at that Nu Skin building, right?
Yeah, down in Provo. Yeah.
Are they using a AR tour app?
Not yet.
Have you not seen that yet? Or have you seen it?
No.
No? Interesting.
An augmented reality app?
Of a tour of the building?
Well, I'm actually in the middle of a project to take a look at that process right now. So I just joined 2 months ago, so maybe there's something that I'm not familiar with you're alluding to.
No, I'm just curious. We did an AR app for Nu Skin, I don't know, maybe a year ago at this point.
Okay.
And anyways, I'm interested if they ever got around to it.
I'll check into it. I don't know.
Anyways, it was a fun opportunity, but I never saw if it actually came to the light of day or not. So outside of these marketing things that you've done a few passion projects.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming as far as the self-promotion, is that part of this? Or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah. Personal branding is something that I've always been interested in. Considered many times just trying or actually going out and creating an agency, right? Somebody who does that for people, especially like high-level executives, right? There's agencies everywhere who do branding for companies from small to big. But if you could specialize in doing that for a person, right? And I think there's more and more of that going on now, but that's something that I've always been interested in.
That's cool.
And I've done that for a couple of my friends, helping them establish their social media profiles, setting up websites, creating click funnels, right, for demand generation with some kind of a white paper to build an email list, logos and email signatures and domains and so forth. Just kind of the basics to get them set up and establish a style guide and stuff for their brand. But I've never taken it beyond a couple hours a week.
Sure.
And so that's what I was interested in talking to you about. I know you're, starting to dive into that world, at least in part, with being a thought leader, you know, establishing yourself.
Yeah, I don't know how much I'm leading in the thought, but I have thoughts.
That's a good point, right? What is there a difference, right? Is there a difference between being a thought leader and having thoughts? If you're out there leading, will people follow? Do you care how many people are following you, for example, right? And I think that goes back to your why. If you start with, why are you doing it? And so, when I sent you that text to talk about that with you, that's kind of where I wanted to start with is, what are your goals with what you're doing in this effort?
In the podcast stuff specifically, or in the just content generation?
In general. Yeah, I think in general with your efforts to brand who you are and to get your name out there, what are your goals and how's it going?
So I've always liked freelancing. I've done freelance design work now for the better part of 7-8 years. And I like it for a couple of different reasons. One, I like the exposure. I actually came from the marketing background myself. And so design actually came second to me. Now I'm much more heavy into the design, but I still have this entrepreneurial itch. And so when so I started freelancing for a couple of reasons. One, I like just the exposure to what people are doing. I liked being in as far as marketing and branding and all that kind of stuff. And so it was a way for me to keep my skills sharp. Recently, as I've started doing the podcast stuff, the thought process behind it was, is anybody going to listen? Like, that stuff never really crossed my mind. But what I liked is that I could do more of like the content creation that I've always wanted to do, that I wanted to document, specifically for the sake of documenting, being able to look back, see where I was at, see growth, see progress, but document some of those things that I was just always having a hard time documenting in the sit down, write a blog post, write an article, whatever it is. I recognized that as I started listening to more podcasts, how many people around me that I had that knew so much, had interesting experiences and stories. And I was like, well, shoot, if I could just document those things, it's going to benefit me.
Sure.
But maybe it benefits somebody else. As things have advanced or evolved, I had the opportunity to speak at a couple of local events, and that spurred a lot of designers who were trying to get into the design industry to reach out, ask questions, and do some of that stuff. And that's actually been fun. So it's helped me fulfill some of a mentorship capacity, which I've enjoyed. And, I think, who are the listeners? Probably that is probably most of the demographic is those who are trying to get into the design community, who are interested in design in general.
So they're looking at you, seeing your success, where you're at in your career, and saying, I want that. They're reaching out to you and saying, how do I get there? Or at least looking for advice.
And maybe, I don't know if I'll be as advantageous as saying they're looking at me going, how do I get there? But they're looking at me going, that's interesting. Yeah. For better or worse. I don't know if they're looking at getting joy out of, but, I think I've had decent success as far as my career goes. And even if I was having terrible success, you can always look at somebody who came before you and said, and go, what can I do differently? What can I do better? What can I do similar? Find those types of things. And so they may just be looking to see how can they progress themselves. Okay.
Let me describe kind of a philosophy, if you will. I think you'll be able to relate to it really well. I think, we have a lot in common in terms of our lifestyle.
Sure.
So I have this philosophy that we should all strive to be more mediocre. And let me tell you what I mean by that. That's meant to catch your attention. So often in high performance books or leadership principles, paths to success, right? Success formulas, if you will. People will tell you, if you want to be successful, find out what you're passionate about.
Yep.
And focus on it with laser focus, right? And they're going to tell you it's going to require a lot of sacrifice, and you're going to have to make some sacrifices to focus on this. And I actually believe that's true. Like, I think that we can be what we want to be and become what we have so much at our fingertips right now in the world of by way of getting to be whatever we want. Even if you don't go to college, like, you could become a graphic designer purely through tutorials and classes and self-taught on the internet. I mean, that's just one example. I mean, literally, I think the examples are endless in that front. But I think that doing so comes at a cost of the things that matter most. Okay, so you and I both have families. Okay. To me, that's the most important. And I think people worldwide would agree, at least in word, that that's what's most important. Okay. You and I both are committed to service. We commit many hours a week to serving others, whether it's in the community or in the church. I think that there's also other demands on your time, right? Your health. Right? Are we exercising? Are we spending time on things that allow you to manage your stress? Right? I mean, I think maybe the point taken, there's a lot of demands on our time, and many of those things really, really matter. And sometimes doing what would be determined success financially, or in terms of power and recognition, would come at the cost of those things.
Yep.
And so to me, often my life feels like a battle in mediocrity, because I spread my time so thin across all those things, trying to accomplish everything that matters most, that I never reach the echelons of any one of those things, the high echelons of any one of those things. I just am mediocre at all of it. You know?
Yeah, I totally know, dude. I mean, this is a subject that I could go on for days about because I have not figured this out.
But yet you made a decision to add another thing, right?
Yep.
Like, so now you got side hustle.
Yep.
Right? And you're creating content like this, like you and I are going to spend this hour together.
Yep.
Right? So my question was to come to you, because I know you have that battle also, and say, how does that fit? Like, I want to do that. I feel like you. I think that I can influence people for good. I think I can help people who are, trying to get better at marketing, or just collaboration, right, with peers who have the same amount of experience and so forth. So how's that working out for you? Adding that to your schedule, dedicating this kind of time. How's it going?
It evolves. And one of the things that I've put an emphasis on over the last couple of years specifically is just the idea of self-awareness in general, and recognizing these important things in my life, and making sure that they're not suffering. And I tend to have that personality where I go in and I go in hard. And I've noticed as I've done that over the years, there's things that pay the consequence. If I go, let me give you a couple examples. 2 years ago, I went hard on freelance design. Everybody wants to redo their websites and their branding at the end of the year because they want to hit the beginning of the new year, a new them. So come the end of the year, my freelance just shoots through the roof. But what that did to me the last two holiday seasons is I worked through both holidays. And 2 years ago, I worked, and I'm talking like I get home from work at 5, I go to my office at 6, and I work till 10 if I'm lucky, or much later in a lot of scenarios. And I did that from like mid-October, this is 2 years ago, through July. Right. And I've even talked about this, I think, on the podcast, but I remember waking up on July 1st last summer, looking at my calendar going, it is July 1st. I've missed a good portion of summer already, and I've got nothing to show for it when it comes to my kids, time we spent together, memories we've made. I've got nothing to show for it. Mm-hmm. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Mm-hmm. I became much more aware of it, and I've I just tried my best to balance. Again, last winter, things started piling up at the end of the year, but I made a very conscious effort that I wasn't going to take on as much as I did, and I had to say no to a lot of projects. Mm-hmm. It ended up working better, but I still ended up working a fair amount November through February. And then right around February, I told my wife, I'm winding down now because it's going to take me 2 months to actually wind down. Mm-hmm. And come May, right around May, I was pretty much offloading a lot of the design work I had so that June, July, August, we had a full summer we could spend together. As we're recording right now, I haven't released a podcast in over a month and a half. And I probably won't release another one for another few weeks. All these that I'm recording right now, I'm going to end up banking up until probably summer's over. Until kids, Jameson starts school, until things start to...
Bedtime's earlier.
Yeah. And once things start to go in that direction, I'll come back to this. And unfortunately, the nice thing is the most time-consuming thing about the podcast is the post-editing.
Yeah.
Recording is only going to take us 45 minutes to an hour. And I can do that. I can, book out time for that. And then I'll just save it. And then one day I'll go back and I'll edit these things.
Yeah. I think that would be, first of all, I think that's admirable. But I think that would be hard for me because knowing, just the principles of influencing people, being consistent.
So you feel like I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're saying like letting people down and taking that month and a half off?
Yeah. Essentially what you're telling, I think what I'm hearing is you're also being mediocre at this as well, right? Just like I make decisions to be mediocre in various aspects of my life because I'm spreading that time and not focusing on them. Yep. What I'm hearing you say is, yeah, it's like that with this too.
Yep.
You know?
And there was a book that I read recently, as crude as the title is, it's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
I read the executive summary of that, but.
And to a point, I credit a lot of things that are in there because am I doing mediocre at this? Probably. If somebody was looking in on it, probably. But in my perspective, I'm doing the best I can and I'm totally okay with it because I'm not doing this for other people because the truth be told, I don't think other people care about me.
Yeah.
And so they're not going to notice that I didn't show up in their newsfeed for a month and a half. I'm not that important.
Yeah.
They're not going to notice that my podcast disappeared. I'm not that important to them.
When I've
and let me just say,
go ahead.
I'm okay with that.
You're okay with that.
Totally okay with that.
Yeah, I think you have to be if you're going to do it that way. And sometimes I feel like maybe I get to where I'm not okay with that. Like I'll take the time to put together some thoughts on a certain subject and put it out there, right? Or edit together some content that I think is pretty rad. And I'll put it out there in the public and it falls flat. I mean, it's like maybe 10 people recognize
Very few people
the value in that. Very few people care. I tell you, if I go post a picture of my daughter today, it'll get over
how it works, dude.
100x times
right.
what it took me. And it took me just a second to do that. But the investment of time that I put into, putting together my thoughts or, creating some content, it's just like, that's why at times I feel like, why do I even do this? Because I influenced 10 people,
And I think there's a key. I mean, you come from the marketing background, that consistency is key.
Yeah.
But my consistency is in occasion. And I think I'm more consistent in being consistent to me now as opposed to a timeline.
Gotcha.
When I told a bunch of my friends that I was going to start a podcast, they're like, how often are you going to post? Once a week, twice a week, once a month? And I said, I don't know. Whatever I end up doing. I don't want to say twice a week.
Don't set the expectation.
Because it's exactly it. Because if I don't hit, I'm going to be disappointed in myself. So right now I've got no expectation.
Yeah.
And it hurt actually for a while when I realized that I haven't released a podcast all of July. At first I was like, dang, that sucks. And then I was like, no, it's not. I had a fantastic summer. And we had a fantastic July. Yeah. And going back to what matters more, I made memories with my kids this year. And that is more important than the 10 people who are going to listen to this podcast. And again, I'm cool with it because I'm not doing this for the people. I'm doing this because it's a passion project of mine. And what happens of it, I don't know.
Right.
A couple people have found it interesting and have reached out. Cool. If it's helpful to someone, great. If it's not, I'm okay with that too.
That's respect.
But to your point of talking about family and kids, like I noticed that the more I dove into this, the more I try to be consistent, I hear, I sit up in my office, I hear my kids throwing fits downstairs and I'm going, man, they sound out of line. Well, it's because dad hasn't been present in 3 days, and so that's not cool in my book. And I know my wife, who's not a complainer, would never say anything, but I know it weighs on her.
Sure.
So I just got to go back to balance and figure out what is the best balance for me.
So I guess overall, maybe this is the ultimate question. Do you find it worth it?
Doing this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. For me. It's beneficial for me. I like having these conversations. Is it beneficial to somebody else? I don't know.
Yeah.
If it is, cool. If it's not, that's cool too. But for me, this is beneficial. I enjoy hearing your thoughts. I enjoy hearing that somebody else is in the same place that I am. Somebody else is going through something. Yeah, come on. How did we do that, dude? I'm actually going to post edit it so that it's exactly the same.
You rip off your color, add one to mine.
But I mean, I enjoy this. And I've had conversations with a lot of different people doing the podcast stuff, and I get the most out of it. And I'm all right with that.
Yeah.
That's probably part of the reason why I'm okay with not doing the post editing stuff, because the post editing is the part where I go into doing it for other people.
Yeah.
And when I get to that, I'll get to that.
Right. Yeah, there's obviously some aspect of sharing with others. Otherwise, I'd just come over and would have a conversation, right? So there's an aspect of sharing that brings you value
There is. Well. I mean, I almost go back to, I like into like service, if you will. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't say that my podcast is my form of service, but if somebody, let's say there's somebody out there listening right now who is wanting to know if they should start their podcast, but is struggling with this together, and something that was said today is going to ring a bell or strike a chord, cool.
One way or the other, right? Maybe they decide, nah.
Yeah, whatever direction they go, exactly. Now, is that the intention of this podcast? No, my intention is I wanted to have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
If it helps somebody else, cool. If it doesn't, that's cool too.
I like it. It's a good approach.
But now to some of the stuff that you've done, I mean, you've done some really cool, like the drone footage stuff, some of the family adventure stuff that you guys, that is really cool content.
Yeah.
It takes a while to make.
It does take a while. Yeah, we started one time, it's probably been a year now or so. We started a little Instagram called That Utah Family, _Utah_family. The concept at the time was, let's share family values. We all, my siblings and I, all live very close together. So we get together a lot. Like you mentioned, we try to have, we live, a lot of people do it around here, just kind of a Utah lifestyle. We go hang out in the mountains and stuff like you do. And we like to have fun with it, right? We bring our cameras, we like to capture it and capture those memories. And we started sharing it. Well, the ladies didn't join in. And so it got to be to where this Instagram channel with I think we have 200 people that care. It was just the boys' weekend adventures, basically. Yeah. But to your point, we enjoy it. Either way, no matter, I don't care how many likes we get or how many shares, we continue to do it because one, our kids love it. They go watch those videos and they light up.
That's it, dude. Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what I hope you're going to drive at. How cool is it that you get to go document this stuff with your brothers and your kids and their cousins or whatever it may be? Yeah. That is cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a memory that they'll be able to look back now in the future. Yeah. And have home videos that are much higher quality than the home videos that you and I grew up with.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think I have home videos. I mean,
ours are pretty awful.
Yeah.
Jane's got home videos that are so awful. But the videos that now Jane's recorded of our family and stuff, and she's put them to music and edited them. At first, her thought was kind of the same thing. Like, I wonder if I can make a business out of this. Yeah. And then it came around to no, I like doing this for us. Yeah. This is our thing.
Yeah, I think we so often do that today, especially, people our age and younger, because we can. Yep. It's well, we could do this. And we know, I believe I could be successful at going out there and put myself out there to drive home that message, right? Influence more people than we do. If, like I said, if I dedicated and sacrificed more time to it. But again, that would come at the cost of actually doing it for the reasons that we just got done saying, right? To share memories, capture memories, and actually spend time with the kids rather than just capturing the kids. Yep. It's I'm sure you've experienced it. When you're all the time trying to capture everything rather than living it, it's completely different. It's difficult, but we try to balance that as well.
It goes back to what do you want, right? I mean, when people post their stuff to social media or to Instagram, for example, to living in capturing or actually living in the moment. I posted my first Instagram photo last night. It was the first time in a month and a half I've posted now. And I was like, interesting. I've shot a lot of photos. Why haven't I posted them? And it comes back to the same thing. It's for me.
Yeah.
And I know there's grandparents out there that care to see these photos. I know there's friends that want to see photos of the kids and stuff. But
sure.
I'm not trying to grow a social following of my personal Instagram account. And if that's what I wanted, I would then put the effort into it and things would then suffer. And that's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want that bad.
Yeah. Yeah, we're very like-minded in that, I think.
I mean, there's a reason why I've got an iPhone and an iPad set up for my cameras, because do I want to go get professional cameras? Do I want to spend the $1,000 to get cameras? That'd be cool, but I don't really want that.
Yeah.
I don't need that. This works just fine.
Good enough is good enough. Yeah.
Being mediocre. I like that.
It's my life theme, my motto.
Yeah. So I don't know if that answers any questions for you or clears anything up. I think I've just personally come to the resolution that I'm doing this for me, and I'm doing this in a way that I can still maintain balance.
Yeah.
And I'm not setting expectations on what it needs to be or what it needs to grow into.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. You know, it helps to talk about it and to verbalize it. The insight that it all comes down to what you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why you're doing it. I think if you can get down to that, that's some good insight, because you get the results. You're perfectly designed to get the results that you're getting.
Yeah.
Learn that in business school. Yep. Like every business is perfectly designed to get the results that it's getting. And if you want different results, then you've got to change the structure. You got to change the rewards. You got to change the incentives. You got to change the business model. But the results we're getting today are perfect based on the way that you're living your life. So
cool, man.
Awesome. Thanks for taking the time, brother.
Oh, I appreciate you asking the questions. I do think a lot of people relate to that, the subject of life and work and passion projects balances. Yeah. It's a tricky one. The world gets more and more demanding. It's hard to balance. Yeah, and those lines get ever grayer, right? So many people these days are leaving their full-time job, and their passion project is their, you know, they're these digital nomads, and they're traveling the world. And if you can do that, and that's what you're wanting, good on you. Yeah. And if that's not what you're doing, because that's not what you want, good on you as well. Yeah. Good. Cool, man. Well, that's it, man. We'll wrap it up. I appreciate you coming on. Yeah, you bet. Cool.